Your email was quite brief, but it seems as though you've already realized your true nature and just need a little bit of guidance.
I think so. It's just like an in and out, and in and out. That's what I really like what you have to say is that um it's the after seeing clearly what to do about the invitations, because I feel I'm missing something there. And yeah, I'll get swept back in, and I try to stay neutral while back in the personalization.
Hmm.
But I just feel like there's just like a little, maybe there's a subtle sense still there. Um, there's something that I thought we could try to talk through.
Certainly. Yeah, great. So, would you like to give a brief background as to the sequence of things? Just how long you've been seeking, maybe, and then how realization came to be, and then we could take it from there.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll try to be brief.
Thank you.
Yeah, so super simple childhood, no trauma, everything good, just the standard conditioning that I always felt discomfort with.
Mm,
Uh, just something fundamentally uncomfortable.
mm,
Not being able to really put words to that.
mm,
Uh, but I would say I continued seeking worldly things. Like I always wanted, went to college,
mm,
wanted marriage, wanted children, all of the worldly things. But I
mm,
just knew there's something fundamental still.
mm,
No matter how good life is out there, there's
mm,
something inherently uncomfortable about this.
mm,
And, there was anxiety and depression, but I just felt like there's nothing wrong with this
mm.
physical body. Like this is not like a medication type,
No.
this is just something. And so it was in college. So I was in my late teens. I went through a breakup and it was intense suffering. And somehow I stumbled across Eckhart Tolle's book. I had never been a seeker before that.
Mm,
Um, and I for sure glimpsed it. The identity was still in place for sure, but
mhm,
I was like, okay, this is the something else. This is the fundamental thing. Like there was clear seeing,
mm.
definitely.
Yes.
Um, and then that's when I became a seeker because after I tasted that, I was just like, no, it was almost like the normal mode of functioning. I would just be like, no, this is not it. Now I know that this is not it because I have glimpsed,
Mm,
and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something about like accepting each moment exactly as it is,
mm,
allowed something to loosen
mm,
for a brief period of time, and then everything came back in.
mm,
And the trouble with that was that I believed it was something I had to do to make that come
mm,
back.
mm.
And I guess that's what seeking is, right?
Yes.
The seeking went on, I mean, years, at least like 10 years. I don't know. I went down a lot of different paths.
Mm,
Nothing really specific, just seeking. And then I would say in 2021, oh, in that time period, I got married, had kids, and there was always that background suffering, whether it was turned up high and like I said, the outside life was beautiful,
mm, mm,
but there was that inner suffering pretty much no matter what.
mm,
And I just started to see that nothing outside was going to, no rearranging of the outside environment was going to fix that.
mm,
So in 2021, there was some drama with my family that sparked a lot of my like um, core identity conditioning.
mhm,
It really like amplified that, and it was intense suffering. And let's see, I feel like there was no other option but to kind of surrender to the suffering.
mhm,
And it was just a full dropping. I mean, maybe it wasn't a full dropping, but it was something, the only word I could put to it was freedom. Like it
mm,
just felt like freedom. Nothing was sticky. No
mm,
matter what was occurring, it was freedom. I had still never been introduced to the idea of there being no separate self. I had no
Mm,
understanding of that.
mm,
But looking back, maybe that's what that experience was, because it was just like all there was immense love.
mm,
So during that time period, love was a completely different meaning than the human
mm.
meaning of love,
Yeah.
which is more like attachment.
Mm,
And I mean, I was just in awe of everything. Everything was alive, and it went on for like a period of maybe a couple months. And then I started noticing when patterns would arise, they were sticky again, like the old reactions were coming back up. And that triggered a like, oh, no, 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 I'm losing it. I'm losing it. But like I said, I had no understanding of separate self or anything like that. It was just, I just felt like a miracle happened. That's what it felt
mm,
like. That's the only words I could put to it. Like it was um, some miracle happened and everything was different. That's what it felt like.
mm,
So, anyways, that was 2021. Since then, there's been a lot of development or a lot of more intellectual understanding because of, uh, let's see, I'm not sure how I stumbled upon the there's no separate self, but I just feel like from that period to now, it's been a lot of working on a lot of emotional stuff that's come up. And I had
mm,
assistance with that from somebody for like a 6-month period.
mm,
Um, I have seen a lot, like the glimpses I'm saying that there is no separate self, like everything is happening on its own. I can like see that
mm,
in moments so clearly, like there's no person doing any of this.
mm,
It's just happening.
mm.
But it goes in and out. So there's some things maybe still there. Um, I don't know. That's why I'm here to talk to you. So
Great.
yeah.
So, have you seen any of the videos on my YouTube channel, Christina?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Um, because I guess my approach is quite different to most people in that the the dualistic realm and the realm of unity are different. So, are you familiar with the idea of the koshas?
So I've heard you talk about the koshas and something is not clicking with it. So I'm
Right.
excited to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Well, we all begin and remain as attributeless beings. So that really is just a field of infinite possibilities. But it's impersonal, and because it's attributeless, it has no content. And traditionally, it's described as Rishi, Devata, and Chandas, which means the knower, the means of knowing, and the known. So, in its simplest form, the the Rishi value is awareness, the Devata value is awareness, and the Chandas value is awareness. So it really just means awareness aware of itself. And and that's all there ever is really. Even even in the human realm of experience, everything really is awareness aware of itself, but it's in a kind of disguised form. But in the simplest form of awareness, or in attributeless being, attributeless awareness, it's simply awareness aware of itself. And then the koshas emerge from subtle to gross. So the first kosha to emerge is the body of bliss. Have you experienced bliss at all, would you say?
Um, I think so. During that time period I was talking about, that's really
Yes,
what was the main experience happening.
great. So did you find that there was an experience of, say, love and then expansion, and then it would turn into euphoria or bliss? Was this that kind of sequence, would you say?
Um, yeah, it almost felt like um just kind of like awe and
Mm,
love for everything. It felt
yes,
blissful,
yes,
definitely. Yeah.
great.
I have experienced it. That doesn't happen as of late now.
Okay, okay. So, well, the first one is the body of bliss. So you've been there by the sound of things, so that's great.
Right.
And so the second kosher is called the body of wisdom, which is effortless being. And so effortless being is actually where you were in that time period that you spoke of, because
Mhm.
the the idea of the separate self exists in the dualistic realm. So that's a combination of the last three koshas, which they're the mental, emotional, and physical, or astral, etheric, and physical. So most of the programming in the human realm is to do with keeping us engaged in the dualistic realm. So that it's either mental, emotional, or physical. But what happened for you because of the intensity of the experiences you had?
Mhm.
The the dualistic realm kind of closed down because sometimes it's when it becomes unbearable that it just kind of collapses, and then we revert to effortless being. And with effortless being is a field of unity consciousness, which is what you're experiencing. So when you say that love, the sort of quality of the love was different to human love. So human love really is personal love, whereas the love you experienced was universal love. It was like love for everything. It was
It
all,
wasn't pointing at anything specific.
no,
Just
just every,
was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is great. So effortless being is very familiar to you. Do you have you been quite creative through your life, would you say? Do you like things like art or dance or music or those kind of
I was a dancer all my
things?
life,
Ah,
but also
that's
love
interesting.
writing. I
Yes,
feel
fantastic.
very drawn to writing. And
Great.
specifically during that time period, I've just
Yeah,
would love to just sit down and write whatever came out.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good sign because all creativity comes through from effortless being or the body of wisdom. So
Mhm.
so the creativity has just kept that open for you, and that's a really good sign.
Okay. No, I feel like I've watched your videos and did like the impersonal language, and then it was like,
Mm.
oh, but then it feels like the mind comes back with mostly fear. Like
Mhm.
I feel like lately most of my thought processes or the thought processes that come up are fearful, like the most engaging fearful thing. It's like
Yes, yes.
that's just where I am at. Like I'm sure life, the actual external life, there's nothing to be afraid of, but that's all that's
Mm.
being presented.
Well, that's actually a good sign. It may not seem like it, but it is because the dualistic realm is an independent energy system. It's very much like the film The Matrix. So it's a combination of the mental, emotional, and physical. So initially we venture into the mental realm, which is dualistic, and that's where a sense of individuality arises or personalization. And then that's supplemented by the emotional realm. So not only are we having the mental fluctuations, they also then trigger emotional fluctuations, and then in turn they have an effect on the physiology as well.
Yeah.
But really, the main thing for you is to become proficient at seeing the way the dualistic realm works, because there's already familiarity and the ability to function from effortless being. So that's self-realization. So what you've already seen is you've seen that Christina is like a character within the dualistic realm. So there's Christina and Christina's family, husband, children, and family and life situation. And but the character is like a character in a computer game almost. And when we see it in that way, we see that the consciousness that we are is actually distinct from that. So it's the forms are arising within the infinite being you've always been. So with effortless being, the way you describe it and the way it is actually is the forms arise equally and effortlessly. So when you experienced it, it must have been at quite a deep level because the sort of base level of effortless being is neutrality. So if we take any moment, we can experience from impersonal being, which you're obviously familiar with, you know, the way you were saying about the distinction with the language we use, because it's language which is the programming. It's the language which started with, you know, with our name, our parents calling us by name and inviting us to identify with the body mind. Because when the body mind of Christina was very young, well, from birth really, you, the infinite being, would have just been aware of that body mind. So there would have been awareness of the body mind, awareness of sensations, thoughts, family members around, you know, whatever was happening in childhood. And it sounds as though yours was quite harmonious, really.
Yeah. I mean, there was no major trauma, but I do remember um the connection with my mom was very strong. And so if there was discontent within her, I could like viscerally feel it.
Yes.
And that was extremely, extremely uncomfortable as a
Yes.
child. And that actually shaped a big part of my identity as like the person who tries to make sure not to add to any problems, make
Mm.
sure to be perfect and good so I don't upset anybody because I couldn't bear to feel
Yes.
everybody else's stuff.
Mm. Well, it's good you identify that. I mean, you may not have known that as a child. You
Right.
knew where the source of it, but you probably thought that's what everyone experiences. But really, for each of us, prior to birth, the tendencies our parents have, well, the tendencies as our mum has especially, they're kind of downloaded. So we become familiar with those frequencies, and they tend to form the sort of base for the frequencies which predominate in our experience. And so then, you know, with um, people around us like our dad and siblings, then we can adopt theirs as well. But it's because of your sensitivity that there was the ability to experience the emotions telepathically. So you're experiencing the emotions of your mum, probably other family members, and you probably read all sorts of situations.
Yeah. And sometimes I couldn't put a finger on it. I would just be like in the car
Mm,
with her and I would just be like, oh, this is like so uncomfortable. But and the it would I would want to like try to fix, like
mm,
make cause happiness so that I didn't have to experience
yes. Yeah.
whatever the energy was. And
Yes.
that really became like an integrated pattern.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
Yeah, specifically with that connection, but I would, because that was part of the identity, but I would say I could feel it in other people too. I just
mm.
didn't feel that pull to try to change it for
Yes.
them.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
And but that really is because the dualistic realm is it's an energetic construct, because you could say that the first two koshas, so the body of bliss and the body of wisdom, they remain aligned with the infinite being or God. And so everything coming from there is really life supportive and harmonious. And it's a combination of infinite intelligence with infinite love. And the reason you were able to feel universal love when you had that period of time when the mind and the emotions were turned off is because it's available in your infinite nature. So you were directly experiencing that. And that really is the objective of the human experience, to realign with that and only utilize the dualistic realm in a selective way.
Yeah.
And
And I can sense that that's the only purpose to all of this. That's really what I can sense at this point.
yes,
Uh, that, you know, that's my only objective.
so it's
So
very
that's, I knew I had to talk to you.
well, it's very sensible objective.
Okay.
So it's understanding the way the dualistic realm functions, and because the dualistic realm is independent of God or the infinite being, it's a kind of half creation, you could say, because it's structured with intelligence, but it lacks the component of universal love. So there can be love between the beings, so there can be personal love within the dualistic realm. But as you say, it can be more like an attachment. But understanding the way it works, it becomes easier to make the distinction between the delivery from the two. So in simple terms, any content coming from your infinite nature has a feeling of expansion and infinite possibilities. It's effortless. It's usually things coming to you from nowhere.
Okay.
But
It feels like open.
yes, a feeling of
Yeah.
openness. Whereas the dualistic realm has a feeling of contraction and limitation. So things like fear obviously are coming from there. So because the dualistic realm actually doesn't have any energy of its own, the way it is sustained is by the beings who are here who don't understand the way it works. They're actually contributing their energy to it and keeping the whole game running without realizing that that's what they're doing. And it's
Okay.
very similar. Did you, when you read Eckhart's book, did you get clear on his concept of the pain body and the way that
Yeah.
works?
Yes. And I see the pain body play out specifically in my husband. I'm just super aware when the pain body is there and when it goes away.
When it's triggered, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've had to learn to, when it's triggered,
Yes.
to completely take nothing personal. That's probably been part of this journey, honestly.
Yes.
Um, because when it would get triggered, his childhood wasn't as clear cut
Um,
as mine was. So he has a lot of internal stuff. When it would get triggered, what I would do is I would say to myself, nothing, because it would come out as anger towards me, but I knew it had nothing to do with me. And so when he would be angry at me, talking to me, I would just say to myself, this is not personal. And I would just open up.
Great.
And whatever was coming out, there was just like a space for it. And it almost kind of, because I didn't have an understanding of really what was going on, it felt like magic because because often he would come out of it more quickly and he would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry that didn't have anything to do with you."
Mm.
But if I would take it personal and I would respond
Yes,
from there, it would go on for days.
you'd be feeding it as well, wouldn't you then?
Yeah, we would be
Yeah.
lost in it together. So
Yeah. Well, what you describe is the distinction between impersonal being and the personal mode. So everything in the dualistic realm is designed to put us into personalization. But what become proficient at on your own terms is actually resting as impersonal being, because when you just remain, as you say, as that open space, you're remaining as the infinite impersonal being rather than showing up as Christina. And so there isn't anything to push against. So your husband, there's the space there for him to just let that stuff out, but there isn't anywhere for it to stick, and there's no reactivity on your side for it to be generated and turned into a big scene. So it's fantastic that you've recognized that.
yeah. And I mean, there's, I don't catch it every single time.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm still drawn in, and there's just such
Mm.
a contrast
Mm.
to the different modes.
Yes. Do you find, well, for most people, it's there are certain kind of weak spots. One is if you're feeling really tired. So maybe if you've had a busy day looking after the children, and maybe your husband's tired too. And
Right.
so he could become triggered really because he's tired rather than from any other reason.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so it's sort of turbocharged then. The invitations are coming through. But the solution is really simple, actually. Are you able to talk to your husband about this, would you say?
I think we're getting there. I think he would be open to it.
Yeah,
But he's not super familiar with any of
no,
what we're talking about,
yeah,
no. But he's open to it.
good. Because even without an interest in spirituality, it's possible to learn how to handle the dualistic realm in a more competent way, and where it's energetically much better. And I've even with guys who who've come to do work for me, like builders and that kind of thing. Sometimes they show up and they're angry and they're throwing their tools around, and but it's quite interesting that you can have a chat with them and explain, well, actually the human experience is frequency based. So with the koshas, so especially the mental, emotional, and physical, they're structured in a frequency structure. So the lowest level for each of them is the red zone. So it goes from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So violet is the highest one. And so each of those frequencies are available in the mental, emotional, and physical. But the recognition that there is a frequency basis enables us to utilize the frequencies in a more conscious way. So as a general rule, you can, well, actually you're really proficient at this, which is just staying open rather than being reactive. So neutrality really is the one which you can utilize for much of the time, whether it's in the mental, emotional, or physical. So for instance, if say you've had a busy day with the children and you're feeling a little bit tired, and you can just feel something arising, then neutrality really is the key, because that'll just keep you energetically free. Because the thing to know in the dualistic realm is the only energy that is fueling anything is our own. So with your husband as well, that's a good reason for him, if you're able to have a chat, to just explain that it's his own energy fueling it. And because the invitations work on the basis of whether we take delivery of them or not, learning that we can decline them rather than take delivery of them means we're not energizing them. And so we're not investing our energy in them, because if we invest our energy in those particular frequencies, so the emotions are frequency based, so you get the lower ones like depression and that sort, and then anger is a little bit above that, but we if we take delivery of them, we're kind of establishing the delivery system on that frequency. So so if there's a predominant one, so say anger is a predominant one, then the invitations are always going to be in terms of situations which give rise to anger, because the dualistic realm is like a challenge, and you could say the objective that we have is to get through the dualistic realm and not invest our energy in it. Well, not certainly not in any of the lower frequency emotions. The objective of the dualistic realm is to try to put us into emotional compromise. So we take delivery of the invitations and we invest our energy in those. And it's very similar to the way Eckhart describes it. It's something where if we identify with the frequency, then we energize whatever that frequency is, and then because of the way it works, there's a kind of independent intelligence which administers the dualistic realm, which in Gnosticism is called the demiurge. And it's really, you could think of it as like a supercomputer, really, because what it's doing is it's monitoring our behavior, and it's monitoring the invitations we accept. And it has a file on us, so it knows our history. It knows it's very similar to, you may have heard me mention this, but it's very similar to the algorithms on a computer. So if say on YouTube, the algorithms they're sort of creating a profile of
Right.
the content that that we get involved in.
It knows what you're going to click on to watch.
Exactly. So it's putting invitations in the side panel based on the previous content we've entertained. So the dualistic realm works in a similar way. So if we've clicked on anger or depression or something previously, then
Yeah.
it's going to it's going to be delivering content which we're most likely to entertain. And because the whole purpose of the dualistic realm, it's like an energy game, is to get us to invest our energy in the dualistic realm.
Okay, I can see that. Because I used to have a really a tendency towards depression, and now it's just different. It's like I'll wake up. I woke up the other morning and there was like a heaviness I haven't felt in a long time,
Mm.
but there was like a neutrality towards it, like, oh, that's interesting.
Great.
And then let's see how to put language to it. It's almost like a noting of it, but a non-reacting to it.
Mm. Yes.
Whereas maybe before there was like a fighting against it. Um,
Yes. Well, one way to
yeah,
explain this, this may be the case, is because you're familiar with impersonal being, and you have the ability to actually rest as the infinite, impersonal, timeless being already. That you're familiar, and it's something which is available to you. So previously, it may have been that there were invitations arising, but there could have been more personalization. So when we're taking delivery of them or experiencing those frequencies where there's a sense of personalization, then we can plug our energy into them, because we can only invest our energy in them if we're showing up in the personal realm. If you're remaining as impersonal being, there isn't
yeah,
any way that you can invest your energy in them. So even though that sort of heavy feeling was being delivered as an invitation, there was the space to be able to see it as that and say, oh, this is quite interesting. It's just trying to get me to take delivery. But because you're resting as impersonal being, there was no connection. So you weren't connecting your energy supply to that frequency. So you can just disregard it. It's like somebody knocking the door to sell you something that you don't want to buy. So you just say no thanks and off you go.
okay. Yeah, a disregarding, I guess, is the right term because see, when I think about conceptually like an invitation and not accepting it, it makes me feel like, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not a pushing against, like
No.
it's not a saying no, actually. It's more of a disregarding.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. But it's seeing that the key really is knowing that you already are very firmly established in impersonal being. That's something that's very familiar to you. And it's something you can actually enhance with clarity, because you can see the distinction between impersonal being. So much of the day, actually, you can function from impersonal being. You only
Mhm.
need to show up as Christina in certain circumstances. So you're showing up as Christina, the wife, and then you're showing up as mum as well. And so when you're interacting with your husband or with your children, then there's an element of personalization there. But you
Yeah.
can regulate that, because the key really energetically is not to overinvest in the personal realm. Everything in the dualistic realm is designed to make us overinvest. So the personal realm wants us to build this character where we create the self-image and then we project it into the world. And we want to be seen in a particular way. And but
I feel that that's really become flimsy.
yeah, I sense that.
The self-consciousness, uh, it's pretty much gone.
That's fantastic.
As
That's
far
fantastic.
as like um
You don't really care what people think. You don't really do anything to.
yeah, and you don't really realize what a prison that is until you're not in it.
Yes.
Because I just thought that was normal that you're constantly thinking, what is this person thinking? And
Mm.
that's gone because honestly, the idea of the person in front of me being like this separate entity is also flimsy. So how can
Yes.
that hold?
Yes.
Um, the other thing that's flimsy is past is really
You don't refer to it much.
Well, it could be a dream. It doesn't feel real
Yeah,
at all.
great.
It
Fantastic.
could just as well be a dream.
Yes.
Um, and then, however, future still has a stickiness. I feel because I'm still getting a lot of fear invitations.
Mhm.
Those are usually connected to future.
Right.
Um, so intellectually, I know that it cannot be real.
Yes.
But there's a stickiness there if you have anything on that. I don't know.
Well, the main, the main thing, especially in relation to fear, is to know that it's only ever your energy which is fueling the fear, as it was with that invitation into that, that sort of heavy feeling in the morning. And there's a real incentive in not entertaining fear, because if we entertain fear, it tends to perpetuate circumstances where there's the possibility of fear arising. But if you, you see fear as something which you don't wish to partake in, so you view it from neutrality. So any invitation into fear. So if it's to do with, say, financial security or anything to do with stability in your work or
It's usually
children.
always surrounding my kid's safety.
Right, yes.
That is the trigger. That's the trigger.
Right, yeah. That's quite that makes sense in a way, because you've integrated most aspects of the human experience. And so the dualistic realm has been scratching its head a bit, saying, well, what can we use against her now? Because there isn't much left. We'll just have to try this one as a last ditch attempt to keep her in the game.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
actually, the secret is, firstly, in not entertaining any kind of fear, because if really, what's happening is you're the infinite being, and for you, your consciousness is very powerful and very clear. So fear is it's like a lens. So on the one side of it, there is the clear light of your infinite nature, and then it's going through this murky lens of fear, and then the frequency coming out the other side is a sort of distortion. And
Right.
so you definitely don't want to be doing that. So the ability just to maintain neutrality rather than to entertain fear. Under no circumstances do anything based on fear, because there's never a good outcome from that. It's better just to revert to neutrality and then
Mhm.
let things unfold. And
Can I give you like an example situationally?
certainly, yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm in the kitchen cooking dinner and the kids are in the backyard on scooters and they're yelling and it's loud and like there will just be like images of them coming up like getting hurt or something.
Mm, mm.
I don't know if there's like it's like the last ditch sense of control or something. Like I have some control over their it's something their safety. I don't
Yes.
know. So when those images are coming up, they just remain in neutrality and allow them to arise as they do.
Well, there's a practicality. So you do everything on a practical level to avoid any accidents. So
Yeah.
if you watch them play and you see they're doing things which could involve danger, so there's a possibility of them getting injured, you explain how they can have a lot of fun, but not to be doing things which are going to result in them getting injured.
Okay.
And
And that actually arises effortlessly. Like I
yeah,
can
good.
see functioning from
Yes,
effortlessness, that just would arise.
yes. So
Yeah. That wouldn't be
neutrality.
coming from fear, actually.
That wasn't. No, that's great. That's
Yeah.
good.
So I mean, like in that
That's just
situation,
common sense, really, isn't it? Rather than
right?
fear. So that's really the best way to handle those situations. And so not to entertain fear, because entertaining fear is actually more likely to fuel something which isn't going to be very nice. So you absolutely don't do it.
Okay. And by fueling, you're just meaning putting my energy or putting energy into it.
Yeah, because everything is an invitation. So if there's an image which arises, which triggers any kind of fear, then
Mhm.
immediately just revert to neutrality rather than entertain that image, because there's a choice in that moment to either run with it and
Yeah.
then you're kind of fueling the fear even more, and then it can become more extreme, or
Yeah.
you see it, the frequency of the fear or the frequency of any of the emotions is really like a little alarm which is saying, are you sure you wish to go here? Because it isn't going to be a nice place to go, really. So you just stop and you just revert to neutrality. And that
Okay.
goes the extreme version of that. Well, it actually isn't extreme. It's sensible in a way, is in realizing that everyone and everything remains as the infinite, impersonal, timeless, omnipotent, indestructible being. So there's a program which is the maternal programming, looking after your children, but actually you remain as the infinite, timeless, indestructible being, and so do they. So so when you know that, um,
Yeah. What is it to
then
fear?
you can
Yeah.
actually live from there
Yeah.
in any way. So I have a kind of practical approach to life, which is we know the dualistic realm is changing. You can hear from moment to moment that somebody's been killed or they've died or there's injury or there's something happened. And really knowing that everything is the infinite being and the the changing realm is really only like a play,
Yeah.
then you can change the context so that it creates a kind of shock absorber when you adopt that context, because the you're already armed for anything that could possibly happen. Because
Right.
lots of people, they're sort of fueling fear, and then, oh, I do hate to have receive a phone call and hear that something happened to my whoever. But that actually is creating the invitation, and it's sort of greasing the wheels of the delivery track where something like that can show up. So it's really important because ultimately everything we experience in this life is really about expansion. So even if there are events which on the surface level seem to be unpleasant, there is always a depth to that experience. And ultimately, nothing is lost because everything remains as the infinite being. And knowing that, you can live from that level of certainty where whatever happens, um, you see that it actually in the bigger picture isn't that important. And
Yeah.
the more you actually function from impersonal being, the more you'll see that, because impersonal being is outside the dualistic realm, and you see everything going on in the dualistic realm, and but you see it more as a play, and you see that you can regulate the degree of investment in that. So one way you can regulate the degree of investment, say to do with fear, is firstly that you adopt neutrality. So anytime anything comes in to try to invite you into fear, you just stop and you just revert to neutrality. And then you also have um, this option just to remain most of the time as impersonal beings. So the personal realm can be activated in the sort of higher frequencies. So the higher frequencies of the mental and emotional and physical realm. So say in terms of the love you have for your husband, for your children, for everything really, um, then obviously continuing to entertain those experiences, but just not not fueling anything below neutrality. So nothing to do with fear, nothing to do with anxiety, nothing along those lines, because it
Yeah.
is the only source of energy that fuels those is yours. And that's why when people, if they're involved in depression or anger or fear, they feel
Mhm.
exhausted afterwards because it's their energy that's fueled that whole. It's like a little scene in a play, but they have to pay to put on that little performance. And so it's like energetically quite depleting, really.
Yeah, and it's like once it gets going, there's such a momentum to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why the whole notion of, you know, accepting the invitation or not, I feel like is really, really key.
Yes.
Because it's hard to step back once there's momentum.
Yes. Well, it's
Uh,
great that you're so fortunate actually, because you're really familiar with impersonal being. You know exactly what it is. You've functioned there for long periods of time. And so actually the only reason that the remnants of these invitations still arise is because the dualistic realm knows it's game over, really. So it's had to turn the heat up on the fear and the things which it can still draw you in slightly, because it's monitoring the aspects, and it says, well, we know she's got a really big heart. She loves the children. I know what we'll do. We'll send her these invitations to put her into fear about the welfare of her children. And that's all
yeah.
it is, really. But it's an energy game. But because you know how it works, you don't need to play it.
Okay.
And you
Yeah.
can
The
just
whole
turn it
time
on.
that you're speaking, it feels like a visceral difference between opening or narrowing focus into
Yeah,
the invitation.
exactly. Exactly. And the benefit really for you especially is that the energy which you reclaim from the dualistic realm, so anything which has been fueling any of the lower frequency emotions, becomes available in terms of your infinite potential. So the sense of opening, the sense of expansion, and things coming to you in terms of your true life purpose will become available to you, and they'll become really clear. And you're only just beginning really to see the potential that is available, but you're well down the road in many ways because you have the clarity of functioning from impersonal being already. That's something which is really familiar. And it's only like a bit of tuition in playing in the dualistic realm, which you've seen that. And the way you describe the distinction with the invitations between disregarding them or kind of saying no to them. There's a slight difference in that, in the energy involved in that, because you could say disregarding them is effortless, whereas saying no, there's a slight energetic involvement there.
There is, yeah. It's oh, let's see. It's almost like the distinction between acknowledging it as a true reality or seeing at
Yes.
it as just the current content.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like with I'm sure you watch your children playing games at times, and while they're playing the game, they're really absorbed in it and involved in and see it as being very important. But you as an adult, you're looking on and you're seeing it and you're thinking, well, it doesn't really matter who wins.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that with the dualistic realm. It's seeing it more like a little children's game, and not seeing it with seriousness. And it's like when you get to see how a game works, you can you can really play it much more efficiently. So with the invitations, you know not to invest in them because it's your energy that is fueling them. And also seeing that most of the invitations we receive, they're trying to conceal something mostly. So so in your case, um, the fear is really um, it's really trying to distract you from what you already know, which is that you can experience infinite universal love, and infinite universal love can become available moment to moment, really. And but it's because the dualistic realm doesn't want you to discover that that's available forever. It's trying to keep you in the dualistic game.
Yeah, it does feel like distractions coming up. Something that has come up really recently and is like very emotionally charged. You know, my kids are already 8 and 10.
Mm.
All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you should have another baby. If you don't, it's never going to happen. And I can just feel I can feel that this is like a path of staying, another like distraction, trying to like pull me back into the worldly
Yeah.
stuff
Yes.
as like a path to, this will lead you to happiness or
Yes.
whatever. You need this.
Yes.
You need this. And it's like I'm not fooled, but it went on for like months, and it'll still try sometimes.
Yes.
But there's like a knowing that that's all that is like a distraction from this. Yeah, just like last ditch efforts.
To keep you in the personal realm. Yeah, because
Yes.
it's having children. I mean, it's great having children when you're young and
Yeah.
to have that experience. But the way you've detected that, because that is really an invitation, as you've seen, because it's trying to, because really the opportunity is to give birth to the infinite impersonal being rather than to give birth to a personal being.
Yes. Yes. I know. It's
So
just, yeah, it's just everything that could still be sticky is coming up lately.
yeah. Well, that's because you're at the end of the road, really. It's because um, there's real clarity, and so there isn't much that the dualistic realm can throw at you anymore.
Yeah,
And
because
knowing
even
that,
when it's thrown, even when they do come up, or even when I'm drawn into lower frequencies, there's still like there's almost like a not fully believing in it.
mm, good.
Like there could, like we went on a trip and um anxieties came up, and it feels like, okay, that's the full experience right now. That's all
Mm,
I'm experiencing is these anxious states and these anxious thoughts, but there's still not like a full investment in it,
mm, great.
even though it's occurring.
Yes. Yeah,
I
that's
don't know really how to put language on that, where before it's like, oh my gosh, there's like a panic about it, like
yeah.
I'm experiencing this right now, no, 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 no.
Yes.
Now it's more like okay, this is what's here.
Mm. Well, it's because you're seeing the content, the dualistic content, from impersonal being. So even though it's arising, so there are circumstances arising which can invite you into things like anxiety, but because you're seeing them from the stability of infinite impersonal being, even though they're arising, they're just really arising as invitations, but you're not investing in them, or at least the investment in them has been reduced really
Right.
substantially. So that's
Right.
great. So do you feel you can experience unity consciousness? I'm sure you can. So
I guess I'm not super sure. A lot of my terminology is not. I've been struggling with language lately. I'm more like a feeling sense
yes.
person. So.
Well, that's much better, really. That's why you've made such good progress, because language is, well, all concepts are limitations. So the more we're absorbed in words and concepts and language, then the more we're in contraction, really.
But I do think I have some form of an idea what you're talking about. So recently I was watching, you've spoken with her, and I discovered her through you, but Colette.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was watching one of her videos on YouTube, and she was talking about the heart center.
Mm,
And I have never resonated with any of the concepts around heart. Like I just like, okay, my physical, like I just don't understand that. But however she described it as like a opening up your attention and then like a dropping into the body, like feeling sense, heart center. And I think maybe what happened was unity consciousness, because it was just like such aliveness, just
mm,
pure aliveness.
mm.
I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but
Well, we'll have a look and just see if your experience relates. Um, so if you let's just take this moment, because unity consciousness is available in any moment. So if we just take this moment, it's really just seeing that there are forms appearing in this moment. So there are the sound while the sounds arising. So the sound of two voices, there may be sounds outside the building or sounds inside the building. There's awareness of the body sitting on a seat. There may be awareness of a few thoughts or some emotions. And within the room, there are forms, so there could be furniture or objects. And unity consciousness is really when we just remain as the open space, the infinite field of awareness and beingness, rather than identifying with the body mind. So the conditioned version is the idea that you really are Christina, you're this body mind sitting on the seat.
Yeah.
But the unified version is that actually you're the open space of awareness and beingness within which all forms are appearing. So the thoughts are appearing as waves. So it's like it's like an ocean, really, an ocean of infinite awareness, which you could say at source is silent, and then the forms appear from there. So there could be the sounds appearing. There's awareness of the body sitting on the seat. There's awareness of the objects in the room, of the light through the windows, and all those forms, they're just arising equally and effortlessly in this moment. So even take the computer screen. So there's the computer screen, and then there are objects of furniture, and then there's this body mind sitting on a seat, and there's awareness of the body mind, and everything has told us that that's who we are. But actually, it's just like a piece of technology, really. It's like a vehicle which belongs within the dualistic realm, within the three-dimensional realm, really. And so even though everything has been designed to get us to identify with that as though that's who we are, and then everything else is separate, in unity consciousness, you just see everything arising equally and effortlessly. So it could be a thought arising, it could be the sound of birds singing or the wind in the trees, or it could be the sound of voices or the sound of whatever is appearing.
Yeah. And the source is like a deep stillness.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can.
So is there a sense of silence and stillness, and then the thoughts and the forms are appearing?
There's like the deep sense of stillness.
Mm.
Oh, I guess I'm looking for the thoughts to be separate from that, but they're not.
No, that's great.
Yeah. It's trying to pull them apart from it, but it didn't.
No.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's a sense of deep stillness and silence amidst everything.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's not where I function from usually. But I can sense it right now. And I can think of like so many times that I've sensed that,
Mm.
but not for necessarily long periods.
Mm.
Like reading certain books, I can think I would sense that.
Mm. Probably when you read Eckhart's book,
Yeah,
triggered that silence. Mm.
yeah, and I would sense it.
Mm. That's great.
Um, so it's actually possible to function from that always.
Yes, well, when the silence, because the silence is the silence of impersonal being, so it's like an ocean of silence, and then the forms are emerging as waves on that. So you could say the ocean is silent, and then there's a wave which could be a wave of sound, or it could be a wave of thought, or a wave of emotion, or sort of waves of longer duration, like the body mind, or the house, or the furniture. But it's seeing that everything is a wave arising from that ocean of silence. And in any moment, one can just rest as that field of awareness and see that everything is arising within that field.
Yeah, it's actually quite familiar.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. I feel like there's like there's a thought stream saying like this should turn into something magnificent if you actually see it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's an invitation actually, because the dualistic realm's watching the conversation and it's saying, how can we confuse the bit here? We'll make it seem as though there's something missing. Because it does that, but it's no, it's the simplicity really, because unity is what is already here, and it's just really simple. So there is only ever unity consciousness, really. It's just that the subject object mode is overlaid on that. So when Christina was a little girl, there would have just been the forms appearing. So there could have been the taste of some food, or the texture of toys, or the sound of mum in the kitchen, or the sound of a car going by. Whatever those forms were, they're just arising as waves upon the infinite ocean of being without ever becoming separate from it. So, like a sound wave, it's like a wave which emerges from silence and then it goes back into silence. But it's what is already known by everybody. Everybody really is in unity consciousness already. It's just that the subject object mode has been overlaid on that. So we've been told that we are this person, so that creates the duality in the sense that you really are Christina, and then there are your family and
Mhm.
the situations, the circumstances, and that it's Christina who is experiencing them. But all along, it's only ever been impersonal being, which is aware of anything. It's
Yeah. Well, yeah, from this like silence and stillness, it's just very clear that there's nothing outside of this
yeah,
except for like in thought form.
yes,
If a thought wants to arise
yes,
about something, but there's
yes,
really nothing but
yeah. Can
this.
you see how the Can you see how the language creates a sense of personalization? Because you're just resting as this infinite field of awareness and beingness. And it's only if you activate personalized language. So if you say, oh, well, sometimes, my children are playing out in the backyard and I can hear them playing. And so that's activating the personalization. So before you use those words, I'm, me, or mine, there is only impersonal being anyway, and everything is arising within that, even including the sound of the children playing in the backyard. They're just like sound waves, and it's safer it's safer for them to be playing within the sound waves of unity consciousness than in the duality of fear and anxiety.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, because there is an effort in the unity consciousness. It's just what's happening. There's not like
Yes.
an um
Mm.
yeah.
It
There's,
takes no effort to be, but it takes some effort to be Christina, because you have to engage the mind and
you have to freak out a lot. You have to be a little bit neurotic.
but it's just great to see the distinction really, because when from impersonal being, seeing Christina and Christina's tendencies and ways is delightful as well, because she's great as
Yeah.
she is. There isn't really anything to fix, because it's that uniqueness of the filter which you can just enjoy really, and you can just have a great time with that. But it's knowing that you can, when you function from the sovereignty of your infinite nature rather than functioning from the human level, then you can regulate the degree to which you experience certain things. So all of the really nice things that you experience in the human realm can be maintained, but anything which you don't wish to experience, you can just turn off. So you can turn off all of any anxiety or fear or anything, but maintain all the love. And there's probably some outrageous behavior and things as well, but it's just allowing all that to be, because that's all part of the fun, really. So you don't want human life to become wooden. You just want it to be spontaneous and
Free.
absolutely free. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see that all of the aspects of Christina are inside of the impersonal being. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas the other orientation is Christina. Okay, yeah. Christina experiencing the world,
Yes.
but it's really impersonal being, and the aspects of Christina are within it
Yes.
happening as part
Yes.
of the.
Yes. And you, the sovereign, infinite, impersonal, indestructible being, can regulate the flow of energy through the vehicle called Christina. And so the experiences can be on your terms. So you can turn off the aspects you don't wish to have, and you can maintain all the ones you enjoy. Because it's really just learning to be competent in the way you use the technology of the dualistic realm. And there are
Right.
lots more things. My feeling is there are lots more things coming down the line. You have a lot of them already. So you have telepathy, um, the ability to tune in emotionally with other people. So you're already functioning. You brought most of these skills into this human lifetime with you, and you brought in realization. Actually, it's just that there was a little bit of programming early on which invited you into the personal realm, but it was never really going to stick. So it's never, but by the teen years, you're already becoming free of it.
Right.
But
Yeah,
really
but
seeing,
it's
sorry,
almost like it doesn't matter what's coming down the line when, do you know what I mean? Like the personality would be like, what's coming, what? But I can just sense that, like, yeah, it's
well,
just there.
it's really more like it's seeing that the human realm is like a play.
Yeah,
And it's like if you go to watch, Shakespeare, then
yeah.
part of it is the contrast of the emotions that you feel, um, just the way it's taking you on a little ride, really.
Mhm.
And the human realm can be much more like that when it's from the foundation of impersonal being, because the personal realm isn't seen to be so important, because everything in the dualistic realm is an inversion. So it's made to seem as though the physical is most important, and then the emotions and the mental, are related to that. But the more you become familiar with impersonal being, you see that the dualistic realm is more like a field of entertainment. And
Yeah.
so you're not
For the
really,
latest.
yes. And so you're not afraid of a few little rides, so it can be, it can, it can just be more, it can just be more entertaining. Even, whatever's being delivered, you can just see it, and you can experience it for what it is. And the more stable you become in your infinite impersonal nature, the more you can enjoy the white knuckle ride of the dualistic realm without really being affected by it.
Yeah. Oh, I actually have a really funny story. So just about invitations. So one of my big fears is like
Was
toxin.
one of the big fears was.
One of the big fears that Kate would present itself in the
Mm,
past was like toxins,
mm,
like a fear of being harmed by a substance, like
yes.
whether accepting it. Um, and so that I described that video that I watched of Colette's, and it brought me to unity consciousness, the same
Mm,
thing I'm feeling right now,
yeah.
or the same thing that's felt right now. And so I was just there, and it started feeling really euphoric and blissful, and just like light, and all of a sudden the thought came like, did you accidentally ingest something that made you high or something like that? Like a fear thought, like, oh my
Yes.
God. And I just laughed because it was like an invitation to get scared,
Yes.
you know?
But because you were so deeply established in unity, it didn't register, did it? It's so that's an example of the way it's like a sliding scale between unity and the dualistic realm, because the more deeply you become established in impersonal being, then those invitations, they don't, well, you can just disregard them, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're closer to the personal realm, or there's maybe tiredness and other things as well, like alcohol, that can trigger, um, that can trigger invitations. Uh, but yeah, that's an interesting story, that is it. But it's great that you saw it so clearly, because there was the stability, and but that's the sneaky way that the invitations are delivered. They try to catch us off guard. So at the point when there's most euphoria, it
Yeah.
sort of fires this invitation to try to get you to take it, because the you could say the infinite field of beingness is like a shared field. It's like, people call it the morphogenetic field, which is like, it's a field which is amended by the experiences of everyone experiencing it. So the more people experiencing euphoria, bliss, unity, then the more that becomes available to everyone else. But the dualistic realm doesn't want that, because that means that the investment in the dualistic realm, and being in the mental and emotional turbulence, is no longer attractive, or no longer, there's no delivery taken of that. But so you can see why the deepest experiences can sometimes give rise to the most intense invitations. But it's seeing it in that way, because people sometimes become distracted. The way it is for lots of people have already realized their true nature, but the dualistic realm has kind of logged the fact that they have become energetically free from the dualistic realm. So the dualistic realm then looks through the files and brings up the most intense form of invitation back into some sort of dualistic content, and fires it at them, with great velocity, to try to get them to take delivery of it. But when
Yeah.
that's all that's happening, it's just it doesn't matter the degree of intensity, because you just know it's an invitation.
Yeah. I think that's been happening for quite a while.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe at least like a year. It's just been like pummeling invitations.
Hmm.
And that's like a lot of the work that was being done was because it brought up so many emotions, so many like visceral feelings.
Hmm.
And I there was resistance to feeling a lot of that. So
Hmm.
I feel like there was a period of time where it was just really important to feel into the body when stuff would come up instead of engaging
Hmm.
whatever the story was.
Yes. Well,
That
let's
was
just have a look at that for a moment, because
okay.
uh, really, I'm not asking you to believe this, but the approach I have is quite different to most forms of therapy and integration and welcoming and that kind of thing, because lots of forms of therapy and lots of spiritual practices are actually reinforcing the personal realm. Because if we take a particular tendency, so there's a tendency towards fear, then that tendency is only something which is being delivered in this very moment. So you're resting as the infinite, impersonal, timeless, pristine, indestructible being, which can't be affected by any of those funny little invitations. Um, and So actually, there is no content to deal with. It's just that there can be a tendency to take delivery of certain kinds of invitations. And if we believe that by using therapy to try to release them, that the idea that they're in the body, because even that is that's a concept which we can adopt. Like the idea that we're carrying all of this stuff in the body is only a concept which actually isn't true, because we're not carrying anything, because we are the
That would
infinite.
be a person carrying it.
It would have to be first, because it's exactly that sequence. Firstly, we have to adopt a sense of personalization, and then we also then have to pretend that it's the person who's adopting the content. But actually, they're both lies, because you never become the person, and the content is only an invitation being delivered. But if we consent to the idea that we are a person and we have all of this stuff to process, I've been doing it a long time, but we'll be doing it forever, because there actually isn't any, except through our
Mhm.
consenting to the idea that there is. And
Mhm.
it's really it to say
Oh,
to say that
oh my gosh, I can really see that. I can really see that pretty clearly.
fantastic, because that really is the game over, because all of the therapies and spiritual practices, there's the current one is the idea of spiritual bypassing, which is it's such a joke, really, because the idea of bypassing something means that we kind of own it already, and that that we need to process it, and if we don't process it, we'll be bypassing it. But these things are only invitations, so we don't need to process them. um, and then you just see that you're already free, because it's like this very fine line between the timelessness of your infinite nature, which is right here and now, the timelessness of impersonal being, which you're resting as always. Do you just remain there, or do you step into the mode of personalization and pretend there's all this content that you need to process? But it's only the idea of that can only be adopted if you've already adopted the idea of personalization. And
Yeah, I can see that really clearly.
fantastic.
Yeah, that was still definitely holding on to that concept.
Well, it's a very common one at the moment, and the what makes it slightly tricky is for people where there's a really deep investment in personalization, so they still feel as though it's the person who's evolving spiritually, then things like welcoming or releasing can have some temporary, they can give temporary relief,
Yeah, but temporary.
but it's only temporary, and it's actually dealing with something. It's like taking in your neighbor's laundry and doing all the dirty washing for them when you don't need to, because it isn't yours in the first place.
Yeah, because it if we're just effortless being has no will or desire to change anything
Mm.
about the person,
No.
that it would require the person
Mm.
to want to work through or process
Mm.
emotions correctly
Mm. Yeah.
in the way. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Because it was just whatever comes up is just part of the landscape, really.
Yes, it is. It's an invitation onto a little ride. There's the processing of the emotions, or the welcoming, or the fully feeling the feelings, and all of these things.
Hmm.
And it's just like a little ride.
Yeah, because there's a bound feeling in that.
Mm. It is. It's a feeling of contraction, isn't it? You can sense the source of it, because it does have that feeling of
Yeah.
contraction, because it's a feeling of being burdened by something which you have to process. but the simplicity of seeing that actually it's only ever possible to remain as the pristine, impersonal, attributeless, timeless being, then there is nothing. We can only pretend that we've got stuff to process then.
Yeah. Another I feel like could be a sticking point that comes up is that I should be perceiving, yeah, it's like ideas of how I should be perceiving if I really see things clearly. Like I should be perceiving that like I am equally like that faucet over there. It's like an idea like of there's going to be a big shift in perception.
Well, it's actually it's really simple and it's already present. So, and it's actually experienced in neutrality, you could say initially. Unity consciousness is experienced in neutrality. So if we just take the example, so there are two forms appearing within the
Mhm.
room. So there's the body mind of Christina, and then there's the faucet or the tap in English terms. and
Right.
and so when you're experiencing as the infinite field of awareness, which you already are, you're just this open neutral space of awareness within which all forms arise. You
Mhm.
could say there are two waves appearing within that field or within that ocean of awareness. The one is the body mind of Christina, and the other one is the faucet. So they're already known, and they can be experienced in unity because you can experience them equally, because there's
Yeah.
the form of the body mind, which has been called Christina, is fully known, and the form of the faucet is also fully known. And so that's unity consciousness. So when it's the infinite ocean of impersonal being that is aware of the body mind of Christina and equally aware of the faucet, that's unity consciousness.
Okay. So it was just an idea, a conceptual idea I had that perception was gonna really have some big shift. And
Well,
but when people were describing it, they were describing this.
well, the unity I just described is the lowest level of unity. So that's the unity on the level of neutrality.
Okay.
And so that's within the body of wisdom or within effortless being, you could say. But what you experienced when you had that prolonged period is you were experiencing higher frequencies of unity. So not only were you experiencing the unity, so you were experiencing as an infinite impersonal field of beingness and awareness within which all forms arise. But when it's seen that the body mind, the faucet, the blinds, the light, the objects, they're all waves appearing within one's infinite nature, and they're all appearing within a field of infinite possibilities without the field of possibilities being amended or compromised in any way. You see that there's a kind of magical quality in the way the infinite being is manifesting it as these forms of limitation. And you could see them as being there to serve you. So it is there's a feeling, there can be an exalted feeling because you're experiencing the forms in a more subtle way because you're experiencing them as appearing within oneself. And then there can be that subtle sense, and you can experience it very much, say, with your children or with your husband, where it's this sort of miraculous experience where not only can you see them as forms like waves appearing within the infinite unified ocean of impersonal being, which you always remain as, but there's also the magical possibility of the subtlety of the dualistic realm of experience in terms of love, unity, and all of the aspects, the waves which can arise within that, waves of love, waves of compassion, waves of appreciation. So you were right.
That's so funny. Yeah, there's just not too much to say from here. There's no problems. Any problem would be mind-made.
Mm,
Actually, all problems are,
mm,
because nothing's really a problem
no.
unless you make it one,
Yeah.
or unless you accept the invitation to make it. Make
Mm,
it.
mm.
See that. Yeah, it's really just about resting back.
Yeah, it's seeing that impersonal being is inescapable. That's where you always are. But it's seeing that the personal realm is optional. So you can have the experiences in the dualistic realm, but you can regulate the degree to which you invest in them. So investing in things like, love and humor and fun and everything, to do with the relationship, that you have with all the people around you, then that's fantastic. But you don't need to entertain any of the invitations, which we're being bombarded with them, from everywhere, really, like through the media, through the education system, um,
I
every
had to
aspect.
take a, I had to, it's actually been a few years now. I don't watch the news and I'm not
Mm,
on social media or anything like that because I could
yeah,
just feel the energetics so
yeah,
strongly, all of
yes,
it, that I had to just,
that makes sense. Yeah.
um, I had to just be with what was here.
Mm,
Um, that's it.
fantastic. Well, social media, you can see, is
Oh,
an intense invitation into depersonalization. It's like creating the self-image and
yeah,
even down to what you're having for your dinner.
it's all story based.
Yeah, yeah,
And what's being the stories projected onto there are not reality in any way, shape, or form.
no, no.
So that was just so clear that
Mm,
I was like, I
mm,
can't do it anymore. And it has a very addictive quality to it.
mm, yeah. Well,
Mm.
personalization is addictive, really, isn't it? And you can see
Main addiction.
it.
Fundamental addiction.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's very true, actually. Yeah. And I'm thinking back to this past weekend, there was an invitation that came up
Hmm.
um in like a relationship. I don't have any relationships with drama and stuff like that, but there's just this one, and it had to do with that, and it was an invitation, but I just kept noticing like, oh, like I see the invitation coming, but it's not sticky.
Hmm.
And what I noticed is that um, the invitations started getting louder.
Oh, yeah, to try to draw your attention.
Yeah, louder and more dramatic, all surrounding this initial invitation that I was noticing wasn't particularly sticky, whereas it would have been probably not very long ago. And so just tried to get louder. And there was an accepting of the invitation, but only for a short period.
Mm. So you disregarded it for quite a long time, and then as the
Yeah.
volume got turned up, there was just a little bit of acceptance towards the end.
Yes. Yes.
Mm. And then you walked away, probably.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because it's oh yeah, it's just so clear right now, the way that it works.
Mm. Fantastic.
Yeah, because the only way that it's even possible to accept an invitation is to like depart from impersonal being,
Yes.
to move away from it.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah, because when you say impersonal being, that's just the reality of this, like the only
Yes.
real thing right here. So in order to accept an invitation, you're moving away from this
Yes.
energetically
Yes.
into the mental realm and the
Yes, exactly. It's that distinction. So in the koshas, there's a dividing line which is between effortless being, which is the body of wisdom, and the body of bliss. They're on the one side and they're effortless. And then on the other side, there is the mental, emotional, and physical, and they all require effort. And so the one requires no energy and the other one requires energy. But everyone in reality is resting as the infinite impersonal being. So it's like in this moment, you're the infinite impersonal being, and there is an option to assume the character. So it's a bit like the infinite impersonal being is like the actor, and then there's the character, which is Christina. And so the impersonal being can play the role of Christine. It knows how to do that very efficiently. But it's the actor is delivering the lines and then animating the character called Christina to make it seem as though there really is this character called Christina when there never has been. There's only ever been infinite, pristine, impersonal being.
yeah, I can see that. Okay, really quick, because I had this question. When you say like the body of wisdom, when you say body, what exactly are you pointing to with that term?
Well, that term is slightly misleading, really, because
Yeah.
the body of bliss, it's good
Yeah.
that you pick up on that. It's your intuition which is saying there's something not quite right about that description, because the mental body, the emotional body, and physical body, you can use that term more loosely because there's more of a sense of restriction or limitation. But the what's called the body of wisdom, which I prefer to call effortless being, is actually an infinite field. It's an infinite field of beingness. And the what's called the body of bliss is also an infinite impersonal field of bliss. So they're both in infinite impersonal fields within which everything is appearing. So all universes, dimensions, time streams appear within those. And
Could say field is a
so it's a field or like an
okay.
ocean rather than a body, because when you it sounds there's something which sounds wrong about that really, but it's
Yeah,
just
that's clicking. That's
yeah,
clicking.
yeah,
Dave.
good, good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, your intuition's spot on there, so it's detecting any little anomalies in the language. That's great.
That's funny.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I guess it's just pretty simple.
It is. It's great you've seen it so easily, actually.
Yeah, and I feel that it's because there's been so many glimpses,
Mm,
s- so many moments of clear seeing, but then
mm,
narrowing a focus back into the mental
mm,
realm.
mm, mm. It's been great to meet you, though. It's been fantastic.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so happy that this worked out and I got to talk to you and
Mm.
just appreciate everything you're doing.